Welcome to Strategy Saturday. I'm Charles Crillo, and today we're breaking down ratio utility billing systems, or RUBS, and why it's one of the most common ways landlords split utility costs, especially in older multifamily properties. So over the years, I've owned and rented out apartments with and without RUBS. I've also lived as a tenant in both. And RUBS is a system of distributing the cost of utilities, usually water and sewer, based on a combination of several factors. Now, since the 1980s and the 1990s to the present day, most multifamily properties constructed here in the United States have been equipped with submetered utilities. However, older multifamily properties are less likely to have submetered utilities. Every property that I've invested into has always had submetered electricity, which I feel is mandatory for 12-month rental properties. And if they had gas, it was also submetered. But on older properties, it is very common to include the water and sewer in a tenant's rent. So the idea behind RUBS is to divide the actual cost of utilities between all tenants using a specific predetermined formula. And the formula will include one or more of the following factors based on each individual tenant's unit to determine what each tenant owes. And this could be number of occupants in the unit, square footage of a unit, number of bedrooms or bathrooms in the unit. Typically, I see property managers mainly bill by the number of bathrooms. That is how we have done it when we had properties with RUBS. And once when I was a tenant, the property that was built in the 1960s, and the property manager had a flat fee RUBS system that was like $45 per month for one bathroom units and $55 per month for two bathroom units. I remember when we leased that apartment, there was just like a cover sheet that they gave you with the lease showing what the RUBS was. It was just a straight flat rate. It wasn't an exact measurement. Now, property managers have to be careful when they're calculating RUBS because they need to deduct the common areas. So in the apartment complex I lived in a decade ago that charged for RUBS, there was a pool, there's a coffee area, like a little cafe thing. There was a common areas and bathrooms in the pool area, and all the water usage for these amenities had to be deducted before the remainder was split among the tenants. And there are strict regulations around charging and overcharging tenants for utilities, so you have to be very careful. I would always work through a property manager that's well-versed in your area before instituting RUBS or even thinking about them. Now, I believe that the apartment complex I lived in undercharged for the true cost of RUBS per unit to ensure that there was no chance of overbilling. Now, instead of splitting the bill exactly, adjusting whatever unit owned regularly, they simply charge a flat fee based on the number of bathrooms each unit had. For properties that want to be more exact, they need to spend the time dividing the bill per unit and individually billing each unit. Although it's not an ideal situation, the property can offset the cost of utilities by utilizing RUBS. So what are the benefits of RUBS? Well, property owners are able to recover a significant portion of utility expenses. No upfront costs are really the main benefits of RUBS. Unlike submetering, landlords do not need to invest a large amount of money into implementing RUBS. Some property managers might cite conservation as a benefit of RUBS, but let's be honest, the property owners don't want to foot the entire utility bill themselves. Is a tenant really going to turn off the faucet sooner if they're splitting that water bill with all the other tenants at the property? They know they're not going to save any money if they do, especially if it's on that flat rate. So what are the disadvantages of RUBS? Well, it's the lack of direct measurement. Okay, tenants do not pay for what they exactly use, and this can lead to disputes with tenants. Regulations. Property managers have to be aware of local laws and regulations regarding RUBS before implementing them. And it is a rent increase. If you're required to pay the property manager more, it is a rent increase. And I've heard many investors over the years simply say that we're going to implement RUBS and all tenants will start paying them immediately as if it is no big thing. And it is not that easy or simple. You usually need to wait until a lease renewal or until a new tenant moves in. And if a tenant was paying $1,200 a month for rent, and after RUBS, they're now paying $1,270 a month for rent, that is a 6% rent increase. No matter how you want to explain to tenants, they're paying 6% more. I don't like RUBS personally, and I try to avoid having them at properties that we are investors in. And the last time we had RUBS at a property, we invested funds to submeter it, and it was well worth it. Submetering has an upfront cost, usually of a few $100s per unit, but once installed, a third party handles all the billing and service for your tenants. The service charges your tenants the administration fee of a few dollars per month and their actual water usage. Property managers can now offset all their tenants' water costs without having to explain, bill, or collect additional funds from them because it's going through a third party. Furthermore, water costs increase regularly, and if you implement RUBS via a simple flat fee and then water rates increase, you need to consistently adjust the RUBS fees accordingly. If you implement submetering, this increase is all handled by the submetering service. So as a side note, when we had a property, it was in Tampa and it was on RUBS. And I remember this a few years back, it was a pretty sizable increase in the cost of water. So that's when we were saying like, no more RUBS, we're going to invest the money, and we spent it over like a year plus. We put them in right away and we don't charge for them, the new submetering. And then as tenants move out or as they renew, we can put in and start activating that submetering with the third party. And that's the way we did it because it's the easiest way of just pushing it off. If any water increases in the future, it's not us. It's the water company. It's this third party. It has nothing to do with your apartments per se. This is just who handles it for you. And it's important to note that if you're submetering or implementing RUBS, it usually will take some time as you get tenants on board, since they're now paying additional for the same services that they once received inclusive in their rent. Implementing RUBS or submetering might be difficult if you plan to raise their rent at the same time. Additionally, to learn more about maximizing your rental profits through ancillary fees, you can check out episode SS257. That's SS257, but I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, submit comments and potential show topics at globalinvestorspodcast.com. If you're interested in actively investing in real estate, please check out our courses and mentoring programs at syndicationsuperstars.com. That is syndicationsuperstars.com. Look forward to 2 more episodes next week. See you then.
Have you always wanted to invest in real estate but didn't have the time, didn't know where to find the deals, couldn't get the funding, and didn't want tenants calling you? Since 2006, I've been buying income-producing properties in great locations that provide us with consistent passive income while we wait for appreciation in the future and take advantage of tax laws while we're waiting. And unlike your financial advisor, we invest alongside our investors in every property we purchase. Check out investwithharborside.com. If you like the idea of investing in real estate, if you like the idea of passive income, partner with us at investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com.
Nothing in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this podcast are limited to accredited investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure, subscription documentation, and are subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Syndication Superstars, LLC exclusively.